Ladies and gentlemen, at the outset, I would like to thank Dr. V.R. Sambath, the captain of the ship, which sails for more than 9 times this conference. This is the second time. And one more thing I would like to say is, only 10 years ago, before this conference, on similar conference only, I made my first maiden speech. So I am glad that he is giving opportunity continuously to address the audience on various topics. This time, he pushed me from my usual topic as international law into the corporate social responsibility. And I am glad in one way, that is to share my view on corporate responsibility for the reason that everybody says that corporate responsibility is a good thing and it is beneficial to everybody and all. But nobody talks, and to my knowledge, I have not come across any paper presentation or anything in respect of the critical view on the corporate social responsibility. I am basically a tax lawyer, and the tax is levied by the government to collect from the people at large, and they spent on the welfare of the people. This is a new law that happened in 2013 that is coined with the word corporate social responsibility. The importance is the government delegated its important responsibility, that is alleviation of poverty and providing education and employment and various aspects, that is referred to in Schedule 7. And I am glad that my another colleague, that is Mr. Ramachandran, auditor, who participated in the earlier proceedings, have given clearly the object that is which the corporate social responsibility is given. My object is this corporate social responsibility is not a mere delegation of responsibility on the corporate sector, but also with a defined goal that this corporate sector, who has got certain income, that is, if it is with regard to turnover, 500 crores, profit and service sector, in all these things that is again defined under the Act, they fix the responsibility by way of additional expenditure, that is 2% of the income. Here, the companies throughout, we say that they are liable to pay the maximum rate of 30%. But this new legislation that comes under in 2013, that imposes an obligation with a new name, that is corporate social responsibility, by which they fix 2% of their income, turnover, etc. should be spent for the list of activities that is enumerated in Schedule 7. Why I said was, the name that is corporate social responsibility is a misnomer, and it is an indirect tax that is levied by the government on the companies who are making more money or who are having turnover is more. Here, the object of this delegation is to monitor or to delegate the responsibility of the government on the individual corporate company whose primary object is only making profit. In the course of making profit, normally the big company that is enumerated in the last 20 years spend some money on the welfare of the expenses. In my experience dealing with a number of companies, all companies are spent on the welfare measure to their employees, which will indirectly induce them to contribute more service to those companies only. In such circumstances, the government of India came out with a new concept that is called social responsibility to fix on the companies who are making profit alone so far. The companies who are making profit so far, using the resources that is abundantly available and that is belongs to the government. Say for example, internet you take for example, there is no investment excepting the technology. Now without internet you cannot imagine to live in this world. But with that technology, there are so many people and so many sectors are being benefited. Like this, many of the source or raw material that is abundantly available without value, and those used by these governments, the corporate sector, are called upon to pay by way of 2% of their money to the people in turn. The government also defined Chapter 7 that these are all the things that is to be done. One of the important and the topic that is given for us also is poverty elevation through corporate sector. There are many other things are there, and one other thing that is important is about the protection of the environment. You all know, to my knowledge, among the world, one of the best climate and one clock time is available only in India. Throughout India you travel, you need not adjust your watch at all. Whereas if you go to any other country, you will have to change the watch timing, etc., etc. As far as we are concerned, our damage to the environmental or forest and other things are minimal in nature. However, the responsibility or the blame that we are shouldering, that we are also party to the eradication and disaster of the natural environmental is more. One of the glaring examples you all would have come across is about the cracking of crackers during Deepavali season. In many countries, even today, they are bursting crackers on special occasions, whereas in India, the Supreme Court specifically stated and banned that crackers should not be burst in, even though on Deepavali occasion, and that too only for a specified time. Like that, there are so many things we are doing it. So the basic object or the purpose for which these things were done is to see that the corporates are spending more money apart from their welfare or their allowable expenditure under the Act. See, under the Income Tax Act, certain expenditure which is spent by the corporates are allowable as a business expenditure. But here, such is an additional 2% is provided to them to spend not for the welfare of the people, but either not for the welfare of the employees or to the benefit of the company as such, but the money should go to the general public. The public at large socially should be benefited even though they are not contributor in any way to the welfare or the development of the company. In those circumstances, it is specifically stated that elevation of poverty is very important. I am trying to say how that is lacking because as far as the provision and the other things are concerned, my auditor, Mr. Ramachandran, has elaborately dealt with it. But the area that is not, this thing is done there, I am part of one of the NGO organization which promised and working for more than 2 years to restore all river beds and connection in Chennai up to Gumbripundi. And for the past 2 years, they are working so hard with IFS forest officials and other people and all. But when they go for implementation, they don't have legal force. There is no binding for the other government department to accept their suggestion or to cooperate with them. If they go there, the local people and government authority, they say that, sir, what money you want to spend, sir? Sir, we want to spend 50 lakhs. Also, first you go and spend it, then you go out, sir. Then we asked why, what happened to the rest? They said, we will take care of the rest of the work, sir. You finish your 50 lakhs. You said you want to spend 15 lakhs on the river cleaning. You go and do it and go out. In Adayar River also, we had the same problem. Everywhere when we go, the government officials are telling that what money the NGOs want to spend, ask them to spend and go out. See, the important factor that is missing in the corporate social responsibility field in respect of people who contribute, who are forced to contribute, who is obligated to contribute, it is a mandatory requirement for running their company, are not socially protected to go and spend the money for the welfare scheme that is contemplated under Schedule 7 of the Act. Especially with regard to one of the factors, protection of the old environment and other things. If you go there and do it, the government mechanism is not cooperating much. As far as recently I come across one of the notifications that is in UAE, wherein His Highness has created a separate fund. The companies are required to contribute into those funds only. Then the fund will be administered by His Highness, and so that the money will be distributed with legal force. Suppose a river is to be cleaned properly, if a scheme is appointed by the government, if the money comes into the government fund, it is easy for the government to do the work in that field. Whereas no such thing are available under the Companies Act, which deals with specifically under the corporate social responsibility. And one other factor is with regard to education and other elevation of poverty. You are know fully well the education is either done by the government schools are mostly done in the private sector. In those circumstances, these companies, how do they spend money on providing education is a $1 million question that is not properly explained. And many, many other things, the old environment to be protected, how they will do it, it's all under the government control. What is that they can do? Nothing is there. But why I said it's a mandatory requirement, it's a misnomer is, it is not as if the corporate are required to spend the money. If they don't spend the money, that money or that portion of the unspent money must be deposited into the government account under the Prime Minister Relief Fund or the fund that is created and worked under the state government. And one other important thing is, if the private companies, if they are not spent this money, then there is an penalty provision under which they are liable to pay not less than 50,000 rupees as penalty, and the directors in charge must go before the jail for imprisonment. With all this factor in mind, my opinion is this corporate social responsibility, even though put in motion by the Government of India, requires a lot of modification so as to give a legal framework, binding nature, that is the private sector to work along with the government must be specified. If a fund is to be utilized for a particular purpose, as provided under Schedule 7, the government machinery also must cooperate. But for the government machinery to cooperate, or the obligation imposed upon the government to cooperate with the private sector who are spending money under the CSR scheme, the success of the scheme is very limited. I don't want to say much on the lapses on the side of the companies by misusing this fund also. But most of the big and multi-level companies are taking the CSR matter seriously, and they are doing it. In one factor where there is a misuse, since I have come across, I am telling you, one company, big company is donating the big money to the other corporate sector, and that corporate sector is giving money to this corporate sector, and both the people are benefited. 2 days ago, I came across a SMS message from a big hospital in Chennai stating that before 31st March, we are ready to surgery of any children before the age of 0 to 16 years. Before 31st March 2013, hardly 15 days. I do not know where from they got the CSR and funds and what they are going to do, all these things. All these things, to my knowledge, go to strengthen the hands of the private sector in place of the government, and a day is not far off the private sector will play a major role in functioning of the government sector. I thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.